Oi, oi, it's your boy, the Tommy McMillan of Simply Chillin'. Jack Slack, it's the Jack Slack podcast, and we're coming at you after UFC Oklahoma City bombing. Yeah, it wasn't too bad. It was all right, actually. It was expected to be all right, and it was all right. I'm not going to put my best foot forward today. I've been on fire the last few weeks, putting out boycasts and podcasts and breakdowns and articles and shit. And then they bring me this, which is B tier slop, let's be honest, maybe C tier. Couple of interesting things happened, couple of decent fights, but not even slightly important. A lot of these people don't look like they'll go anywhere, to be honest, in the grand scheme of MMA. But a couple of fun things, Fatima, Kline, going to talk about her. Let's jump straight into it and see if we can hit 30 minutes today. Dricus du Plessis versus Kamaru Usman. It had intrigue. I said on the boycast I'm struggling to get excited for it, but I will watch it because it's got Dricus du Plessis in it. He's fun, he's interesting, he's defying all odds. And Kamaru Usman, off the Hamzat Chimaev performance, and to be honest, the Joaquin Buckley performance, still strong and competent. Up at middleweight for the first time properly. He was up at middleweight against Hamzat, but it was sort of short notice, and Hamzat had only just gone up to middleweight to begin with, and this is actually against a huge middleweight. Though, funny enough, Daniel Cormier's out there going, Dricus du Plessis has never fought at welterweight because he could never make welterweight. It's actually he had a pretty lengthy career at welterweight. He knocked out Roberto Soldic at welterweight. He held a KSW title at welterweight. It was only once he came to the UFC that he was full-time middleweight. But it's unfair to expect Daniel Cormier to know about anything that he wasn't sat ringside for. Perhaps someone should have texted him. But Big Dricus versus Kamaru Usman, it's kind of interesting because, size factor aside, Kamaru Usman being washed aside, Kamaru is a very clean, by-the-book fighter. His whole game is straight punches, bit of head movement, the occasional left hook, the occasional front kick to the body, barely any low kicks. Oh, the snatch single is the other part. That's the main reason he's so difficult. He's going to straight up box you out of both stances. He's got a great jab and a great straight out of both stances. And he can reach down at any time and just grab your leg and then run you to the fence and then get into the fence smother, which is a large part of his game, not an interesting part of his game, but an important part of his game nonetheless. Obviously, for years, there's been all this, Kamaru's knees are shot. He doesn't do any road work. He does all his stuff on the elliptical, or the cross trainer, as we call it in the UK. Walks down the cage, steps backwards. Just every clip you see of him, he moves like an incredibly old man. And then he gets in the cage and he's shooting down onto his knees against Buckley in his last one from halfway across the cage and getting him down. So they seem to rise to the occasion, his knees. He seems to... Sometimes he plays it up, there's a clip of Corey Sandhagen slapping him on the leg when they're next to each other in the crowd and Kamaru screaming. But I think he sort of wraps his knees in bubble wrap when he's not fighting. And that has the effect of keeping them in pretty good form for when he does get in the cage. It's kind of like I saw Elton John at the age of 76 or something like that. And he hobbles out onto the stage with a cane. And then as soon as he's on the piano, he's doing all the moves, the classic Elton John repertoire. And you're like, oh, okay, so when you're doing the thing, you just sort of forget that you've got a wrecked body. The thing with Big Dricus is, I know he loves to get out there and say, people are analysing my fights and I just get out there and bonk. But his team and him, very good reads. Very weird, sloppy, fundamental form. We always talk about this form versus tactics, but if you transplanted his vision, what he can see and what he can, the coachability, the way that he attacks certain things on certain opponents that he's been told to, onto any other fighter, they would probably be a killer as well. Some of the best adaptations in MMA, some of the best vision in MMA, didn't throw a single knee at Kamaru until round 2, then started murdering him with them. First fight with Sean Strickland has a lot of trouble. Second fight, all the things that were bothering him and that bother everyone else about Sean Strickland, he has an answer for. You can tell me Sean Strickland had a broken hand or whatever, but in the first fight, Dricus du Plessis is walking onto jabs and teeps and getting beat up and trying to grit his way through it. In the second fight, he's on the back foot. He's leading Strickland around the cage, just as Pereira did. And every time he steps forward, he's popping him. He's throwing a high kick on the side that he's only got his hand to defend himself. He's encouraging him to reach for jabs and coming around the side with long left hooks. He's low kicking him as he steps onto that leg instead of as he's on one leg, as Israel Adesanya found very hard to low kick him just straight up. You really have to trick him into it. So his reads in this one seem to be, and if you remember from the Buckley fight, Kamaru Usman does a thing where he covers up and he level changes straight down in front of the guy. You can slip to the side as you change levels, or you can go straight down in front of the guy so that your head is in front of his chest, basically. And that's a great position to come up with the left hook. Really surprises people. Mario Batista did it to Corey Sandhagen the other day. Kamaru was dropping down inside Buckley's big swings and coming up with counters of his own, and it was working really well. The thing about keeping your head on that center line is that people know where it is. Now, I'm not saying that there is a correct way to have your head when you level change. When you level change, you are at risk anyway. But you can level change with your head to the right or the left or in the middle, with degrees of that too. But if you change levels with your head to the right every time, you feel safe because you're behind your lead shoulder, but you can get caught with an uppercut across the body, as Paddy Pimblett was doing to Justin Gaethje constantly. And if you level change with your head to the left constantly, the guy will probably knee you. But du Plessis read that, and in the second round, he just starts picking up his left leg and kneeing, sometimes with his left leg in front, which is crazy. You don't see an awful lot of that, but I've seen a couple recently that really impressed me. So Ikram Aliskerov against Ferreira the other day. He was hitting him with like a non-step, just picking his lead leg up and kneeing him in the chin because he was coming in so crouched. And Nikita Krylov against Robert Whittaker the other day, he was back to the fence. This was the only cool thing he did in the fight. Robert Whittaker went to jump in with a good leaping punch, as he always does, and Krylov leaned onto his back leg and picked up his lead knee and threw a round knee into the ribs as Robert Whittaker jumped into him. So lead knees, very tricky to operate, but they can work very well. Another example would be Yuki Yoza in his fight against Superlek was using what they call a gouging knee in some styles of karate, which is where you pick your leg up to check a kick, and then you drive the point of the knee out at an angle into either their thigh of the kicking leg or the hip socket. And he was able to push Superlek back whenever Superlek threw a right kick or a right knee and hit him with left hooks off it. It was very cool. And if you do that kind of gouging knee into the standing leg, you can get their hips you can get them to fold at the hip, like if you threw a good oblique kick high up the leg. But yeah, Dricus started looking for these left knees, and then he'd switch to southpaw and throw the left knee or the left kick and step through with a 1-2. You know, he was doing decent boxing from his orthodox stance, even in the first round. And again, it was showing you that, like, it's not all form, it's not all fundamentals. He's got really good tempo shifts and feints. So he was drawing head movements out of Kamaru and then throwing punches to where Kamaru moved his head. He was throwing things at half speed and then coming with a second punch at full speed. He threw a right straight, like half-assed, holding it back in front of Kamaru. And Kamaru slipped, and then he hit him with a left jab that went through Kamaru's head at full speed. He was out there doing the stranglers. He was changing up the time signature halfway through. And the left leg. You know, I said this before, but I put up clips of the Israel Adesanya fight, and I was saying Dricus du Plessis' left leg looks like it was crafted onto him from a much slicker fighter. He's so good with it. He targets the lead leg, the back leg, the body, and the head. He goes between them. He fights off orthodox and southpaw. He can kick with his left leg off both to varying degrees of success. And fucking Daniel Cormier going on about question mark kicks when none were thrown. But just going between the body and the head gives guys so much trouble, because if they keep their hands high and they block the high kick, there's a good chance they get kicked in the body, and that really wears on you over the time. And if you start dropping your elbow, you're going to get kicked in the head. The left high kick against Sean Strickland was a constant, because Sean Strickland's always reaching for your jab. So the things that can catch him are the left hook behind that lead hand, which you really have to get him walking onto. Or if you've got a really good dexterous lead leg, you can just keep popping it up there and saying, nope, keep that hand back. Watch what you're doing. And then I saw the old MMA Points account posted, what do you think of new du Plessis' chances against Khamzat Chimaev? And this is the thing, he was talking about working on his wrestling religiously for this fight and asking for Kamaru to demonstrate his wrestling. What he demonstrated was something that Jose Aldo used to do back in his WEC days, which is if you smash the guy with a knee and you don't hit him in the head even, if you hit him in the chest as he's coming in, you've got a good head start when you start digging underhooks and starting to wrestle. It's not proving that you've got great takedown defense. It's not proving that you can get up from underneath Khamzat Chimaev, but it does give you a little bit of a head start. If you, like lots of gyms in their wrestling sessions, they start from like that you can have a single leg, the other guy will be on one leg, you'll have the leg between your legs, and then you have to finish the single leg. Or they might start you on the knees on a double leg and have to finish from your knees and stuff. These little finishing drills on shot. And it means that the defensive guy can work his defenses and the offensive guy can work on finishing a shot that's gone sort of wrong. But if you started that drill and then you uppercutted the guy in the chest cavity first and then said go, that's kind of what happens when you throw a knee like this every time they level change. So Jose Aldo in WEC, go watch his fights with Mike Brown. Mike Brown's probably the best one. You know, he famously knocked out Cub Swanson with knees. He was doing it against Uriah Faber, but the Mike Brown one's probably the best example when he won the WEC belt. Mike Brown, obviously head coach at ATT, very, very good fighter. When he met Aldo, I had read an article like that morning saying this fight moves Mike Brown one step closer to being the generation's defining featherweight. Like that's how highly touted he was at the time, based off wins over Uriah Faber. But Aldo is hitting these beautiful knees and switch knees to the chest. He's not even aiming for the head. He's hitting him in the chest and then digging underhooks and shaking him off every time Brownie wants to wrestle. This is also why I love the uppercut to the chest. You throw the uppercut low, maybe the guy dives his head onto it, but a lot of the time you just hit him in the chest and you make a little bit of space for yourself to dig underhooks. The infamous Dricus du Plessis southpaw jab was present. He threw a couple of normal ones to show that that he can, and then he goes back to this jab where he's southpaw and he leaps in with his elbow high. He draws his right elbow back high and then punches over the top of the opponent's shoulder and guard. And it's the strangest punch, but he hits Sean Strickland with about 20 of them. And he dropped Robert Whittaker with one. Prince Nazim used to throw them before he found the corkscrew uppercut. If you go watch the, I think his second pro fight, he's throwing these constantly and he falls over past his opponent as the guy ducks while he's jumping into these punches. And the crowd have a good laugh at him. So did we really learn much about Dricus du Plessis? I don't think so. I think we learned that he really does get the read on his opponents, whether that's him or his team. But you can have a great team making great reads. Like Eric Nixick is always giving his fighters really good advice in the corner that's specific to their opponent. But they often can't do it. They can't follow through on it. It's a difficult thing to be adaptable and coachable, and also for the coach to train that into you during the camp. You've got about 8 weeks to train for a specific opponent. Learning new things in that time is quite hard for most fighters. So I very much enjoyed du Plessis' performance here. It was kind of sad for Kamaru Usman because he does look like he's lost a good step. He never had the most varied game, but he was always bigger and stronger and faster than his opponents, and now he just isn't. And you're seeing that like good fundamentals with absolutely nothing unpredictable isn't really working at the highest levels against bigger, stronger, faster opponents. What could Kamaru have done to win? I don't know, spend some more time at middleweight first, be in his prime. He was talking ahead of this fight about how he's still doing that thing where he's like, I might go up to light heavyweight. Back in the day when Jan was champion, Jan Blachowicz, he was taking photos with him being like, I'm going up to light heavyweight. It's like, no, you're not. You're not big enough. They'll sit on you is what they'll do. They're not even going to knock you out. They're just going to sit on you and you'll lose. They'll put their hand on your forehead like an older brother and be like, you can't get me. So what's next for Kamaru Usman? I hope retirement, because I don't terrifically enjoy his fights personally, but also because he seems to be hanging around the top end of whatever he wants to do, and he probably shouldn't be. Maybe take a step back, maybe fight someone worse. I mean, Buckley's pretty bad, and he beat him, so that was good. Next for du Plessis, I suppose you do the Strickland rematch. He said that he wants Strickland to get a title defense first against Imavov, which would be nice, give Sean Strickland a title defense, because we've got this sort of triangular thing now where Sean Strickland is good enough to get up from under Khamzat. He's very good at that. But Dricus du Plessis very much worked him out in their last fight. But Dricus du Plessis showed nothing against Khamzat Chimaev. So you've got this complete triangle trinity thing going on where none of them seems assured to beat the other two. I suppose if Imavov beat Strickland, that would make things even more complicated. Or weird. It does, like, revisiting that Strickland-Khamzat fight. Everyone was like, oh, Khamzat fell in love with his hands and decided to box with him. But the same thing happened against Gilbert Burns. The moment he met resistance on the ground, he went, oh, this is hard work. Whereas standing and swinging is actually far more energy efficient and I won't gas out horribly. And I just can't get over that Dricus du Plessis-Hamzat fight. He just doesn't make Hamzat work at all. He's on the bottom hugging him. Even the Usman Hamzat fight, Hamzat did keep shooting takedowns into the second and third rounds, but he was so much worse after getting really good positions on Usman and Usman just making him work to keep them or to keep him down. So Dricus title shot whenever. Or you could do Dricus Hamzat 2 and kill all the hype again. I keep seeing people talk about Hamzat Chimaev immediate rematch with Sean Strickland. I'm just like, why? I was looking through his record ahead of this fight and I was like, cancelled fight against Nate Diaz. Do you remember when they were trying to set up that execution? That should get the fucking promoting license taken away. Genuinely worse than like Conor McGregor versus Diego Sanchez when he wanted that one. And Kamaru Usman was stepping in for Paulo Costa, who hadn't won a fight in like 5 years at that point. They really did try to get this guy over. And he really didn't meet them halfway a lot of the time. But anyway, co-main with Christian Leroy Duncan versus Jared Cannonier. This one was kind of sad. Cannonier trying to wrestle, doesn't really have the offensive wrestling chops. Christian Leroy Duncan just piecing him up whenever they're out on the feet. The thing that I can't get over is that Christian Leroy Duncan's boxing is not very good. So a lot of what he does is just setting up spinning elbows that he throws far too regularly. I do think Jared Cannonier, if we were doing like how would Jared Cannonier have won, I do think he was doing the right sort of things in this one for where he is in his life and career. He's an old man. He tried to put the old man clinch grindy game plan on him. The favourite one I always point to is Big Nog, who couldn't wrestle at all. And then for his last few fights, he decided to push people to the fence and beat them up like he was Cain Velasquez. And it worked really well. I mean, he had Frank Mir, who was much younger and healthier. He had him wobbling off elbows and punches along the cage. And unfortunately, Frank Mir was able to Kimura him from a really bad position. But it was weird to see like two or three fights where Big Nog was this clinch guy when he'd never been that before. But it's so useful as like an older man. The one thing that you probably still have is a bit of strength. What you probably don't have is speed. Speed of foot, speed of hand, speed of reaction. Bringing things into close quarter, into the clinch, that takes away a lot of the dynamism of the striking. Unfortunately, every time Jared Cannonier came out of the clinch to elbow, he got elbowed by Christian Leroy Duncan already. And it is crazy to think that Jared Cannonier used to be a heavyweight. I remember when he first did the cut to middleweight, and we were all sort of tuning in going like, maybe he'll die on the scale. And then seeing this where Christian Leroy Duncan is significantly bigger than him and comfortably making the weight. But then I've just watched Christian Leroy Duncan versus Gregory Rodriguez and Gregory Rodriguez versus Jared Cannonier, and I can't understand how that man makes the weight at all. He's enormous. The thing that I got from that Rodriguez fight with Christian Leroy Duncan is that made his striking look really bad. Pressure and aggression made him really flappy. In this one, he was making mistakes in that he's spinning and giving up his back to Jared Cannonier every 20 seconds, but he was going forward and doing it comfortably. That Robocop fight, he really is made to panic very early on. Meanwhile, Jared Cannonier against Robocop, I called that one of his best performances ever because he was old and washed and he still managed to draw Gregory Rodriguez onto these big counters and take advantage of it. So yeah, it was one of those fights where a little spinning shit is like the spice of life. You're like, oh, I like it. Particularly a well set up one. Like his one against Marco Tulio. He throws an inside low kick. Oh, he tried the same thing against Eric Anders, actually. He throws an inside low kick and then he does the step as if to do an inside low kick and spins through on the back elbow. Now, the step up inside low kick is useful for some things, which we'll talk about today because there's a few on this card that were actually really good. But not useful in other ways because it has this big lead time. The step up is a telegraph. But if you establish it and you hit the guy with a couple of hard ones and say, look, I'm kicking the inside of your leg, and every time I do, I'm going to do this step first, you can use that step to set up other things. So the T-step jab is something Volkanovski does where you bring your right foot up as if to do the low kick, but then you jump forward in a fencer's lunge and just jab all the way through them. Or you can do the step up and spin through on the back elbow as CLD does quite regularly. Because if the guy picks his leg up to check, he's in one place. You know he's going to be standing there. The big problem with spinning techniques is guys not being where you want them to be. Normally moving back, but moving to the side, ducking down. Can't do all of that if you're on one leg. So yeah, I was saying this was one of those fights like Yair Rodriguez versus Alex Caceres, where they were in Mexico City at extreme elevation and they span for 25 minutes, both of them backwards and forwards. And it's like, that is impressive, but my eyes do glaze over after a while because they weren't setting anything up. They weren't cleverly baiting the trap with orthodox techniques and then spinning into a back elbow that kills the guy. They were doing spinning techniques constantly. So every time they did one to the other man would step back and the technique would fall short. And then you've got like a zero stakes Beyblade off. Cannonier was reading a lot of these and just ducking under and getting a back body lock. And luckily, Christian Leroy Duncan was able to separate hands, turn back into him and stuff. And Cannonier's wrestling offensively is not that good. But if you did this stuff against, trying to think of good middleweight wrestler. Well, back in the day, a great example is like Uriah Hall fighting Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker is a striker. He's known for his striking. Uriah Hall comes out, throws a hook kick, throws a step spinning back kick, and Whittaker just sticks to his back and says, right, I'm staying here for the rest of the round. He doesn't climb onto his back. He just gets the back body lock, knees his legs, threatens mat returns, never really does anything useful, but wins the round. And that's what happens if you start giving up these positions to elite fighters in their prime at the top end of the division. So I do question the amount of spinning bullshit that Christian Leroy does, that CLD does, without the base of fundamentals there. And it's not like he can't, I'm not saying like his fundamentals are terrible, he'll never learn them, he'll get knocked out if he tries them. I'm saying, for God's sake, man, throw some orthodox stuff so that when you do spin, it comes as a surprise. Ricardo Ramos is another great example. Spinning, knocked out Ayman Zahabi with a great spinning back elbow as Ayman Zahabi lunged onto it. Next few fights, he's just spinning constantly. And he's not landing because the guy, every time they come close, the guy knows he's going to spin. You've got to get a guy into boxing exchanges and then spin and hit him with an elbow as he's stepping in, and you'll crumple him. But he's got to be doing something that's not dealing with spinning elbows. So what's next for Christian Leroy Duncan? Middleweight is such a meme division. It's everyone there is designed to make someone else in that division look amazing until they run up against someone else in that division who's tailor-made to beat them. Nothing better exemplifies that than the trinity you've got at the top at the moment. But if I wanted to move CLD up, I would say Ghost of Israel Adesanya, maybe. CLD's at number 12. Adesanya's at number 8. Or Kaya Baralho for a good test. Baralho is a decent grappler, decent striker, decent all-rounder. But I think Christian Leroy Duncan could test him with his physicality and try and make him work in the standing position. I don't think Baralho's takedowns are very good. He tends to just do that big lunging double leg with his head down like Donald Cerrone used to. If I wanted to give him a horrible time, I'd give him someone like Anthony Hernandez, who is going to stick to him and take him down and ride him. Or maybe even, it would be interesting to see him against Joe Pyfer. Pyfer's at number 4, so maybe not. And I think he's booked already too. But someone like Joe Pyfer would be interesting because then you would see Christian Leroy Duncan under pressure to not cock up and get his head knocked off against a young, fast, explosive fighter in his prime. Like, Cannonier could have been that threat 5 years ago, 7 years ago. But he's just been so much more fragile and slower and not hitting as hard in recent years. Next for Cannonier, I mean, he's probably on the way out, but Nursultan Ruziboev is somehow ranked at number 15 and he's very sloppy. I could see Cannonier knocking him out, but he's just got booked against. Who did he get booked against? Oh, I don't know. I saw him get booked the other day. Chase Hooper versus Mitch Ramirez was like, why is this on a main card of a show that you're selling tickets to? Is Chase from Oklahoma? No, he's from Washington. Okay. Yeah, I mean, good entry, good takedown, back control, used the inside body triangle to threaten to come on top, turned him through, got the choke. Easy enough. I do question whether Mitch Ramirez should still be in the UFC, and I do question whether Chase Hooper, I mean, he does well against bad fighters and he does badly against good fighters. They call him the absolute median. Fatima Kline versus Tabitha Ricci. Honestly, I've managed to avoid a lot of heavyweight MMA and women's MMA this year, and no one's complained, which has been great. But it was nice to see someone in women's MMA who's actually, you're looking at it and going, that's promising. That's progress of a kind. My wife was sat with me for this one, and she said that woman is stunning, and she was talking about Tabitha Ricci, and I then started screaming about headlock throws. I was like, why is she fucking trying headlock throws? She's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion, and she's getting her back taken off failed headlock throws. Tabitha Ricci versus Tammy Musumeci is one of the funniest grappling matches in the world. Tammy Musumeci is Mikey's sister, and she's even less athletic than him, and even more blind when she takes her glasses off. And she sits down to guard, and Tabitha Ricci jumps 1,000 footlocks instead of trying to pass. She's just like completely lost and keeps getting her back taken. But Ricci's been working with her boyfriend, Callum Walsh. If you didn't know, the UFC constantly posts about how they're a couple whenever either's got a fight. But she, like, you can see that she's trying to box a bit, and she's jabbing and jabbing and jabbing. And I'm going, you are a foot shorter than this woman. Why are you trying to jab her? Get your head down, jump in with left hooks. There's a place for jabbing as the shorter man, obviously. I'm always talking about jab and dip. I'm always talking about Roberto Duran using the jab against taller opponents. Jab and move your head and close off that. You want them to counter so that you can step underneath it. But Ricci's just out there like Carla Esparza, just moving a lot and jumping and throwing punches that don't do anything. Kline trying to set up the high kick off her lead leg a few times in the early going, but hands looked sharp, liked her. Takedown defense looked brilliant, sprawling on everything. And to be fair, Ricci was reaching for like ridiculous trips and shit that just weren't going to work. Collar tie, inside hook sweeps and things. But Kline, on her own terms, went to takedowns, and she was level changing well and driving through on double legs, or ducking under from a punching exchange and getting to the back and hitting suplexes and stuff. And suplex is a big move, a use of energy that most people don't need to do. If you watch someone like Khabib or Islam Makhachev, when they get behind someone, they never try and lift them. For the most part, they step around the side, and they'll lift them in the course of mat returning them like that, but they step around the side or hop around the side, put their knee in front of the guy's knee and sag on him. And that's like when Khabib fought Abel Trujillo and mat returned him like 40 times. The other end of that is someone like Rustam Habilov, who gets behind people and just wants to suplex them over and over again because he's got such a boring style generally that he's got to make his mark somehow. But it's a lot of energy. But, it was like round 3 and she was winning comfortably. And Tabitha Ricci seemed to weigh like half of what she did. So she just suplexed her. But all the other stuff, like getting to the takedowns, I was like, that's good, solid MMA. Yeah, so in the course of me moaning about that, my wife was like, do the men not do that? And I was like, no, that's specifically why I'm always moaning about it, because it doesn't happen in men's MMA. It doesn't happen in men's MMA, with a few exceptions. Someone will bring up Dricus du Plessis throwing Rob Whittaker, which was a good one because he immediately stepped into half guard across Robert Whittaker and used the whizzer to whip him down and start threatening the Darce and elbowing him, if you remember that fight. But generally, people do not just grab each other around the head and try and fall over. Every women's MMA fight, it happens. And it's like, you can watch women's MMA and men's MMA and you can go like, jabbing's good. Low kicks are good. Front kicks are good. But for some reason, women go, headlock throws are great for my sport. It's like, it's not a different sport. So I had to listen to people talk about like, oh, how their hip, they got wider hips generally, so their center of gravity is low. And it's like, no, it doesn't matter that their center of gravity is different, because every time they hit the throw, they still give up their back in the way that men would if they hit the throw. Just stop doing the fucking throw. Unless you're real clever with it. And even then, don't. So what's next for Fatima Kline? Anything. The world's her oyster. I've never been excited for a women's strawweight fight. Well, it's been a long time since I've been excited for a women's strawweight fighter. There was a period where we had the tail end of Joanna Jędrzejczyk, we had Rose Namajunas in her prime, and we had Zhang Weili coming up, and things looked amazing. And I was going, this division is getting good. This is better than some of the men's divisions. I would put it in like my top 5 or 6 divisions to watch. I'm really excited about this. And then it all just went to shit. Rose aged out, left Trevor Whitman, trains exclusively with her strange husband who has terrible game plans. Jędrzejczyk obviously retired because it was the tail end of her career we were catching anyway, but she's now happily doing UFC media for the Polish TV, and everyone loves her. And Zhang Weili is still around fighting the good fight, but she's coming up against like the weakest crop of contenders I've ever seen. So Fatima Kline, good for you. Who we got above her? Yan Xiaonan. Gillian Robertson, Tatiana Suarez, Virna Jandiroba, Zhang Weili. If you wanted to catapult her to the top, I would say Virna Jandiroba. Strong wrestling and game striking, but it would be a good test of Fatima Kline's counter wrestling. Maybe that's a good sort of even test fight. Hard fight, I would give her like maybe Robertson, or maybe not, because I could see that being an execution, because Gillian Robertson only has the one thing. And if Fatima Kline forced her to stand with her, Fatima Kline would beat her up, I imagine. Yan Xiaonan, if you want a fun striking match. And then Tatiana Suarez, I suppose it depends how washed she is. Because she's going to test the wrestling, or she might just stand there like she's made out of wood, like Patchy Mix as well, and just get beat up. But I think do Yan Xiaonan, because you got a good, like, Yan Xiaonan is not going to out-wrestle her. Yan Xiaonan almost arm-locked herself over Carla Esparza's back once. She's really not good at grappling. But she would give you a very interesting striking match, and if she ever chinned Fatima Kline, Kline could probably just take her down. And then move her into the title picture, because, you know, Mackenzie Dern, champion. Unless Zhang Weili comes back and murders Mackenzie Dern soon, that belt is very gettable. Next for Tabitha Ricci, she's ranked number 7. Everyone around her is extremely mid. She can probably be here forever. She hits the odd cool trip, and that lasts on the highlights forever, but she hit a beautiful Tai Otoshi. Who was that on? I can't even remember. Oh, she does have a win over Gillian Robertson, though, so fair enough. Losing to Yan Xiaonan as a grappler, though, is crazy. Tommy McMillan versus Alberto Montes. This was one of the ones I thought would be fun. Most people assumed would be fun. And it did turn out fun. I think Tommy McMillan, they're trying to strap a rocket to, and everyone sort of agrees, yeah, he's fun, he's good, he's not that good. He's probably getting smoked if he meets someone very good. This whole fight, it's interesting to have a read in real time and then watch it be immediately, and then watch it a couple of minutes later get completely vindicated. Because in this fight, I told you last week, Alberto Montes, his striking isn't all that. He's very good on the floor and in clinches, but he tends to rely on this counter right hand to get him out of trouble. And it does. He was getting overwhelmed on his Contender Series fight against Carlos Calderon. He's getting overwhelmed, and he managed to use a couple of good right hands to keep Calderon off him. But it's all he does when he's under pressure. And in this fight, I'm looking at Tommy McMillan. He throws the 1-2, and he leans heavy on his lead leg, puts his head out over his lead leg. He does exactly what we were talking about Conor McGregor doing with his left hand last week. And he's there to be left hooked constantly. But Alberto Montes wouldn't throw a left hook. And I'm going, if he threw a left hook, I think it would land really well here. And McMillan couldn't roll with it or get out of the way. About minute 4, he drops him with a left hook that he just sort of throws in a panic while under pressure. And then later in the fight, he hurt him with one as well. Like every time he threw one, he threw about 4 in the fight. Every single one landed really well. And I was like, Tommy McMillan's defense to the left hook seemed to be just hoping the opponent doesn't work out that it's there. And to be fair, Montes went back to his corner, and his corner just like, get out to kicking range, keep kicking, grapple occasionally. And it's all good advice, but they could have just said, like, the left hook is there when you're in trouble on the inside. When you're covering up, the left hook is there. What I do like about McMillan, bodywork and pace. Love it. You know, you haven't seen any real combat sports if you haven't seen better fighters lose to worse fighters who commit to pace and body. Tommy McMillan could probably beat some guys you think could smoke him by putting the pace on them and smashing their body until they tire. It can be a very self-destructive style because you are, you know, to throw punches at the body, you're giving up the chance to be hit, and you probably getting hit in the head while you're doing it. But he is gigantic, so he does get a lot of free shots on people. He was about 3 or 4 inches taller than Montes in this one. But this is featherweight. So, like, who's featherweight that? I mean, isn't Dan Igue's moving weight classes, but like Dan Ige, provided he knew the left hook was there, has a great left hook who could like really give you a horrible time for this. And he's currently not ranked. Joe Anderson Brito, he's got a pretty good left hook. Delgado could do the same thing with the southpaw left that he was knocking down Bashi with. But Montes was trying to get out to kicking range and do his kicking. His kicks did look good. I really liked both him and Dricus du Plessis on this card. Inside low kick to knee with the other leg. I think Drickers might have gone inside low kick, double collar tie, and then knee with the same leg, actually. But inside low kick as an off balance is really undervalued. I think people try to use it as a point scorer too much. Just the other week, Pinas knocked out Almeida. Because Almeida was doing well, and I was waiting for him to do something stupid, because he fights well for like a minute at a time and then does something dumb at the end of the minute and gets hurt in all his fights. But he stood southpaw and he threw a hard inside low kick, like he committed to it. And Pinas just stood stiff as a rock and took it and threw the right hand down the middle and knocked him out with one punch. But it fed him up the counter, because like, what is the value of a powerful inside low kick? There is almost none. You're not going to get a guy to tap out to inside low kicks. It very rarely jars the knee in the same way that a good outside low kick does. You're just hitting thigh meat and making it sore. The value of the inside low kick is as a balance break, particularly against a guy who's coming forward and swinging overhands. You throw the inside low kick and frame his overhand with your lead hand. You can get him falling forward onto uppercuts, knees, grab his head and knee him. So it was really nice to see Montes against his opponent who's already leaning forward a lot. Inside low kick, right knee up the middle, hit him in the chin. Lovely stuff. Overeem used to do this in K1 when the clinch rule was a bit more free-flowing. They banned it, and then they brought it back a little bit, and then Overeem came over and they were like, right, it's banned again, because this was 265 pounds of horse meat Overeem, who could just grab you with double collar tie behind the head and you couldn't get away. And he'd just knee until eventually your head came to his knee at some point and you ended up unconscious. But he used to do one where he'd get to the clinch and he'd throw a left knee to the inside of your left thigh as hard as he could, and immediately put that foot down and throw a right knee to your midsection or your head, because when he kneed the inside of your thigh, your leg went out, and it gave him access to that center line with his other leg. He had a lot of slick tricks, old Overeem. That's what was so special about him. Like, he was very defensively porous and very chinny for a heavyweight, but he was like one of the most technically interesting heavyweights and all-round skilled heavyweights, and also committed to making himself into Bane. But what could Montes have done to win? Cover up and throw the left hook would be my first piece of advice. He kept using this cover up, like a high lead elbow cover up, which is something that Dustin Poirier did before he learned to shoulder roll. You can see him do it against Conor McGregor in their first fight. And Conor McGregor throws his left straight a number of times, and he's hitting Poirier's arm. And then he goes, right, there's a big hole behind your elbow. So he throws a big long swing around the side and stuns Poirier. And then he throws another one and knocks him out. So he kept going to this high forearm cover-up, and McMillan kept blasting him with long right straights down the inside and over the outside. And this is a good chance to talk about, like, blocking. Blocking by covering the target is the worst form of defense you can use, because you absorb a lot of damage and there's stuff going to trickle through. It's not that they're trying to touch a certain area, it's that they're throwing something at it. So things are going to bounce around and move. Kamaru got stunned with a kick that hit his arm into his neck in this one, in the main event, or knocked his arm out of the way and then he got kicked in the neck in the process. But like, covering the target area means you are going to absorb all the power on your cover. So it's got to be rock solid. Can't be moving around slightly. In this one, it's just like the right hand keeps trickling down the outside or down the inside of this lead arm and smashing him anyway. Blocking a strike at source is the most effective way of blocking. So if someone's going to throw their right hand at you and you put your left hand on their bicep and shove, they can't hit you with their right hand. More commonly, you'll see like people putting their left arm out over the guy's shoulder so that the guy's the crook of his elbow, so that their elbow gets in the crook of his elbow and their shoulder protects their chin and so on. That's called a leverage guard. But I think you could have done the same cover up and just crowded him. Someone else was doing this on this card. Who was doing it? I think it might have been JPL, Lebosnoyani, covering with both forearms and then stepping in and stepping out. Nate Diaz was good at this. He did this against Conor McGregor a lot. But you put your cover up and you know that it's defending some lines. It's making it more complicated to hit you in the head, but it's still got big gaps. If you start moving forwards and back and crowding the opponent and moving away from them, it makes it harder for him to line up those gaps and do it deliberately. If you're going to go with that high lead elbow defense, I'd say drive that elbow towards his deltoid. Just walk towards it, step in, and then when he crashes in against your guard, come back with a short right straight on the chin because he's often leaning forward. That would be my go-to if you are terrified of Tommy McMillan and you want to counterpunch him. Because high forearm to counter right straight is a legitimate counter. Evander Holyfield was doing it a lot against Mike Tyson in the course of headbutting him, but just take the right hand on your left hand and come back with a really short right hand of your own, straight down the center, straight down the line to his head. It works. Like it's just the same as the shoulder roll. You're getting them to commit their power, not onto your shoulder, but onto your elbow and your forearm, and then you're coming back because you know that they've squared up to do that. And of course, wrestle more. I've no idea why this guy didn't attempt a single takedown when he's got a record full of great submissions. And I've watched a few of them. They're not all like, because there's a lot of dastards and anacondas, you could be like, well, he defends takedowns and he gets the anaconda. It's not at all that case. He has wrestled before. Really stupid to not go to it at all here when you're in trouble, even. What else was on the card? Delgado versus Bashi I was quite excited for. It turned into a sort of samey fight. Bashi seems to be improving a bit, but is still throwing one shot at a time. Delgado, the knee was the thing that I was interested in him, like throwing straight punches and knees and putting Bashi under pressure, because Christian Rodriguez did that and got put a beating on him. But Christian Rodriguez also had to wrestle a lot in the course of that. Delgado comes out, knees him in the face in the first exchange, and then gets chinned on one leg, which is exactly what we were talking about with Charles Johnson against Asim Almabayev the other day. Every time he threw a knee, Almabayev would make him miss and then hit him while he was on one leg. And the punch that Bashi hit him with, his hand was open and he hit him with the back of the glove. He turned it all the way over like a Fedor-style hook. And it still dropped him. But man, Bashi, if he's not technically where he needs to be yet, there's a lot of potential because he took some amazing shots in this fight and fought through and kept going. He's just a little bit limited, is what I'd say. Even in like the wrestling, once he gets guys down, it's like, what are you doing? What's happening? I also wish that Bashi made more use of his kicks. I've seen him use high kick on the open side to set up the single leg, Colby Covington style. But if he just kicked more, he's got a good wrestling pedigree. He shouldn't be that worried about people trying to take him down. He should be able to deal with people holding his foot. Just kick with impunity. Because at the moment, like in this fight, a lot of the time, it was him boxing against a kickboxer and then, having a really horrible time as a result. JPL versus Seokhyun Ko was fun again. Like I watched these fights in reverse, so I was losing the will by this time, but I do like JPL. Ko was being billed as like Korean Habib, but in this one, he's sort of reduced to just the overhand left and scrambling. He was taking him down and scrambles kept happening, which was great fun. I mean, the guillotine was on full display in this fight. The guillotine's crazy because if you get good with it, you really do become a threat. But if you get good with it, you also make the mistake of then jumping on it all the time and losing all the benefit of having a dangerous guillotine, which is mainly that guys are reluctant to try and hold you down if the shot hasn't gone perfectly. Anything else happened? Felipe Franco, Mount, TKO. Wake me up when we got another Glover Teixeira, because otherwise I'm not getting out of bed. Ezra Elliott versus Damian Anderson, I was excited for. It was technically very cool, but also kind of dull because Ezra Elliott seemed strong enough to take Damian Anderson down and control him, but scared of giving him an inch. It was kind of like Muhammad Makayev. You're going, I know you're good enough that you could hit this guy on the ground. And he's there with his hands locked and his head pressed against them going, I don't think I will. He might get up. But it's a foot in the door. This is the UFC debut off no contender series. We don't know what kind of contract he was offered. Important to get the win, and the win he got. I thought Damian Anderson's hands looked pretty good, actually, given that I said they looked flappy coming into this one. Landed a couple of shots in the first round and was almost the entire fight in the clinch. Still managed to lump up Ezra's face a lot. He was landing back elbows from Ezra having his back body lock and really making some damage on it, which is crazy. I was looking through some famous examples of those the other day. Roger Huerta using the big screen to land them. Rich Franklin, I think he smashed open Vandy's nose in the last seconds of one of their fights with that. Because you can get some fucking oomph on it. It's just not super reliable. And everything else on that card was rubbish. I think I've gone long enough. It was not particularly great as a card. I'm going to go watch Rising now. Danny Sabatello almost killed a guy after The main event of this one was basically that he was going to be cut in a humiliation ritual if he didn't get a finish. So I'm off to watch that. I'm your boy Jag Slag. Sign up to the Patreon to get all the extra stuff, all the good stuff. And because the next few events are shit, all the stuff that I'm interested in that I want to write about. Old fights, Muay Thai, sumo, all the weird shit that's in my head 100% of the time, but I have to focus on UFC events instead. That's what we're going to be unleashing over the next couple of weeks. Anyway, I'm your boy Jag Slag, and I'll catch you when I catch you. Biggest Drickest bless.